Even I get confused with the numbers. The 9XB is just a simple circuit, and what it is a gate for standard household power. You have household power that comes in at 60 hertz. Well, when you put it through a full wave rectifier, then you have 120 hertz. And then the 9XB is just a gate for that frequency. And what it does is it triggers the SCR, and the SCR triggers the pulse into the cell to come on or go off. And then there's an inductor that, like I said, the inductor is very important to all of Meyer's work. You see the inductor everywhere, and it's a double wound inductor. But you have to, if you want to replicate what Meyer did, you need to start there, because all of his other work follows that exact circuit. And I think you guys are going to link the video, but the cell you can see behind me, I got it running right off the 9XB.
Nice. Now, the Vic bobbins. I know there's been a lot of replications going back and forth with the Vic bobbins and the whole Vic setup, and something to do with the gapping on the transformer. You did a video on it.
Yeah, there's some question on when you have a core, you have a bobbin, which is just a form with wire wound on it. And then inside of that you have a core. It's either iron or ferrite or laminated iron. But the thing of it is, when you get into a certain frequency, you need a harder substance. So the ferrite is actually made out of iron and ceramic that's compressed together. And that core has a different permeability. So you need to match the permeability with what you're working with. And we come up with 2000 permeability works pretty well. And some of the other guys come right out and said I didn't know what I was talking about and didn't do this right. And I said there should be, if you want to lower the permeability, you can put a little gap in it. Well, the thought was made that the gap's going to change things. Well, it does change things, but very smart people design transformers, and they put gaps in different transformers. The thing of it is, you can't go too big of a gap, and it just a very minuscule gap will change things a lot. But you can actually change the permeability by putting a small gap in between the cores. On the VIC that you're talking about, there's a little flat ferrite core that goes in it. They're called C cores. I guess you could call them a U core, depends on which way you turn it. But obviously they have to fit together, and it depends on the transformer that you're building, whether you get a gap in it or there's no gap in it. But either way, the different permeability affects the transformer itself. And VIC simply stands for voltage intensifier circuit. And everything Meyer did, he called it a VIC because when you adjust the frequency and adjust the cell and adjust the inductance, the voltage goes up. You can clearly see it on the oscilloscope, the voltage goes up. And then as the voltage goes up, basic Ohm's law, if voltage goes up, amps have to go down. It's just Ohm's law in and Ohm's law out. The power going in equals the power going out. But
now,
keep
going. So, what is the difference between the tube cell like we see behind you, and I believe it's called, and I'll probably get this wrong, the resonant cavity cell?
Yeah, I was prepared for that question.
All right.
The resonant cavity cell. Can you see that?
Yep.
This is the exact dimensions of Stan's cell, and this is the size of the resonant cavity. And there's the outer tube. Now the tube set that run the car, the buggy that everyone's seen it run, was this baby. This is the exact dimensions and sizes of the cell that run the buggy that we see in the video, the first run. This is the resonant cavity that he made later that no one really saw it run. This is what he was working on. Now these are 3 inches long, and these are 18 inches long. So, the way I see it, the man worked on it for 20 years. He must have knew something, and he went in this direction. So I'm going to say he was pretty sure this was going to run his buggy, and I think it probably did. But this is considered the resonant cavity cell here.
Now, with your experimentation, have you noticed a difference? What difference have you noticed between the resonant cavity cell versus the tube cell?
Well, when you're tuning in the inductor and the frequency, everything has to match. If I change from that resonant cavity cell to this big set here, the big set is 21 inches, and the resonant cavity is 3 inches. When I change that, I have to change. I have to change the inductor, and when I change the inductor, I have to change the frequency.
Now, in terms of gas production, what are we looking at with the resonant cavity versus the different size tube cells?
Well, I can honestly say that I have not finished all the work and got it exactly what Stan had. But it looks to me like it's going to be similar production with the small cell. As I tune it in to what I'm working with, I'm getting a similar production out of the little cell as I do the big cell.
Amazing.
Nice. But some thoughts are the longer tube. He considered it I'm at a loss for the word for a second, but it seems to me that the signal, when you input the signal, it's going to travel up the tube. It's not just there and gone. It's a waveguide. That's what he called it. He called it a waveguide. So if that same electrical signal is traveling up 18 inches of tube, theoretically it's going to make more gas as it goes up for the same signal that's input.
Nice.
Well, in your testing, where do you notice the gas coming out of? Is it come out? Is it bubble up at the base of the unit, or is it all throughout the whole length of each tube?
Well, it depends on the amount of gas. I mean, this one's kind of a leaky one. When you go to the Delrin, the white you see is Delrin plastic. Acetal, they also call it acetal. It's nothing special. It's just a free machining plastic. You know, we dealt with this in the 90s when I was in the machine shop. That's the plastic you wanted to machine because it was so easy to cut. But it adds an insulation factor. Whereas if it's free floating in water, then you get some kind of electrical flux that's shared in between the tubes. I can fire one tube, and the two tubes beside of it are firing as well because they're absorbing the flux. So when he went to the plastic, that insulated each tube from the other for the most part. You still have some capacitance between the two just from the proximity of the two tubes in the plastic.
Interesting.
That's what. So that would kind of explain why in dry cells they have the neutral plates.
Right. It's a shared flux field from one to the next.
So, keep going.
You can see right in the patents where he talks about why he went to the Delrin tubes. He even shows a picture of the 2 tube sets encased in Delrin.
So on the Stanley Meyer web shop, someone can go on there and buy everything, to even down to the resonant cavity, the cathodes and anodes.
Right now, we just have the cathodes and anodes on there. I haven't made any in any of the cavities with the plastic in some time. I made some at one time, but it's so time consuming. And like I said, I do work a day job, and it takes a lot of time to make that stuff. But you can buy the ferrite cores, and you can buy the electronics, and you can buy the anode and the cathodes. But they are a little expensive when you get into the machined stainless. The circuits we kept kind of cheap, and we found the ferrite cores. We did the best price.
Now, if I were to go on tomorrow and buy all my parts, do they come with directions, or do I kind of have to have the gist of what's going on?
The boards themselves, they have connections right on they have how to connect it right on the board. Every component is listed right on the board. It's all silk screened right on the board itself. And then this one, again, this is the circuit I suggest people buy with this circuit, and then the inductor. But again, everything is labeled. It's all silk screen right onto the board. We even sell just the board itself without the components, and they're cheap. And a 10-year-old could get on here and plug this stuff in and solder. And then if you have any problems, all you have to do is email me or ask me a question on the forum, or send a question right to the website, and I try to answer everybody's question on how to make it work.
I do have to say that the email correspondence with you got back quicker to me than I know I got back to you. So I was really surprised how quickly you do get back to your emails.
People have to realize, like I said, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I take my wife to work. I go to work. Sometimes I take a nap in between. But then after work, I pick my wife up, whatever, and then I got a long drive through the hills here to make it home. But I do try to answer all my emails, and I help people out. And if you buy something for me and it doesn't work, I will replace that unit. There's no questions asked. If you can't figure out how to hook the power up to it, I'll guide you through it myself. There's other people that I talk to. There's people on my forum. There's a guy down in South America. His name's Daniel. He's replicating some of the same stuff. He's getting similar results to what I do. There's other people that are, some of them I copy their videos and put them right on my YouTube. There's other people that are getting similar results. There's other people doing this, and they're getting similar results to what I'm getting, and they're plenty happy.
Okay. On that, there was a video I watched where you were demonstrating a 15 liter per minute unit.
Right.
And just looking at it, it kind of enclosed in a white box. Was that because it's secret?
Yeah, that's something I'm working on. It's a little bit of Meyer stuff, a little bit of my stuff. And
okay.
sadly,
sadly,
a little bit of Faraday stuff.
Oh, okay. Is it using a unit like the one you got up behind you right now, or is it using the smaller one?
It's a plate cell.
It's a plate cell. Okay.
Yeah, but see, I work on a lot of different stuff. You know, I show a lot of my Meyer stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that I simply don't videotape. But that cell's not to break any records on how much hydrogen I can make, because there's people that produce hydrogen, big companies that have hydrogen cells as big as a house.
Right. Yeah.
And I just wanted to show what 15 liters a minute looks like.
Looks like.
Yeah, that cell will actually do about 20 liters a minute, and I made it just to fire up the Volkswagen engine to see how much hydrogen and oxygen it took to run the engine.
Okay. So how much would the Stanley Meyer replication, how much have you got out of one of those? I mean, when you turn it on, you see like the whole top of it just go white with bubbles.
Right.
Have you measured that?
It looks like it's 50 liters a minute, but it's actually probably maybe 2, maybe 3 liters a minute at the most. Okay. Yeah. I think I've probably got around 2 or 3 at the most with different setups. With this here on the table, the last video wasn't anywhere near that much. It was, if it was lucky, it was 1 liter a minute. Like I said, it looks really awesome, but it's nowhere near what everyone thinks it is, and I really don't think Stan made 60 liters a minute.
So, where do you think you have to go from here to actually increase the output? Is it a tuning issue, or in testing?
You have to adjust your inductor with your capacitance, and then adjust your frequency to match. And like I said, when you do that, the voltage goes up and the amperage goes down. And whatever voltage you put in, it's going to, say, triple it or quadruple that voltage. And then you're limited. Even Stan says right in his paperwork, you are limited by your components.
Okay.
So in Stan's unit, he had a 600 volt diode. So he never went over 600 volts.
Okay.
It's just not physically possible to go over the voltage of your diode, because your diode's going to pop like popcorn. Right.
And you were saying he was using other technologies in the engine to get it to run off of that?
It looks to me like he made roughly 7 liters a minute to run that buggy in his driveway at idle. I mean, if other people studied that closely, they're going to confirm what I say. It looks like around 7 liters a minute. It wasn't 50 or 60 or 100 liters a minute.
Yeah.
But he also had a gas processor on the intake, which is a LED light array with a voltage zone. A voltage zone similar to what makes ozone. And what this does was it destabilized. When you let's back up a second. When you take an LED emits light similar to the sun. The sun emits all colors of light, and your LED emits whatever frequency of that stuff that they put in the light itself. They put arsenic or all kinds of stuff inside the light. And when it gets electricity to it, it emits light in that spectrum. Well, let's say a red LED is 620 nanometers. Well, when you take hydrogen is a proton with an electron that spins around the proton.
Right.
When you add photon energy, that electron absorbs the photon. And let's say it's like the Earth revolving around the sun. When you add the photon energy, then the electron increases the orbit. And when that electron increases its orbit, it gains what they call electron volts. Well, obviously that's going to change the energy of the molecule itself. If it's got more electron volts, it has more energy in it. Well, then what Stan did was he energized it, and then he removed the electron. Well, when you remove the electron, the proton has an imbalance, a power imbalance, basically. When there's a proton and an electron, then it's an equal field. It's basically neutral. Basically. Then when you remove the electron, now you have a positive potential behind that. So this is all going on inside the intake, and this adds energy to the hydrogen, basically.
I was just noticing earlier, I thought I saw some LEDs on the workbench back there. Was that the hydrogen gas gun? Or
You must have some good eyeballs.
Well, I can't even see that well. Here.
Yeah, I have some different stuff on my videos, and this is the actual array that Stan had in his gas processor. And if you look at the pictures, you can see they were for sure red lenses. Now, there's all kinds of theories about ultraviolet light, blue light, whatever. But what we know for sure is in 1980, in this area of Ohio, he would have had to bought these things from Radio Shack. And what they had at Radio Shack was diffused red, 660 nanometers. And if you look at the gas, if you look at the machine he built, there was 3 of these. There's 7 of them. I think it's 7. 7 of them, and there was 3 of them. So that's 21 LEDs. Pretty sure they were red. You can see he's got 220 ohm resistors on the array. So that means he input 5 volts. And then if you read the patent work, he talks about red LEDs, and he talks about a 5-volt power supply, and then he pulsed this thing at a frequency. He really doesn't tell us the frequency. It's up to 60 kilohertz, I think he says. But that does different things. When you pulsate the LEDs, it's like a pulsing laser, like a low wattage laser beam, basically. And then if you look inside the machine, we don't have pictures inside of it, but if you look at the patent, he clearly states there's a clear tube in here that's a lens, the collection lens, and you can do a simple Google search for a ruby laser, and you can understand how this thing works.